All right, sweet, man. We're live here. All right, guys. So I am super excited about this interview I got today with Tommy Martin, one of our clients. Been working together since April, and Tommy is the owner of Revive Canine out in Minnesota. And so, Tommy, why don't you just kind of kick it off, man? Tell everyone a little bit about you, how you got started, and how we got connected.
Yeah. All right. So, I'll try to keep this a little bit brief, but my passion in training dogs started. I was 15. I got my first puppy. We had family dogs, but I started getting into hunting. My dad was in the military. He got deployed, and I was like the sad little teenager. I quit all my sports and everything, and got into hunting. I had some friends that were doing some like duck hunting and stuff, and they all had dogs that were, they had professionally trained. And we just had one of our family dogs had to be put down, and my brother-in-law gifted me a little lab puppy and was like, here you go, here's your hunting dog. And I remember I asked my mom if we could send it off to get trained, like professionally, go send it off to like a board and train. And I don't know exactly what she said, but I think it was a fairly quick response, like, yeah, right. Like, yeah, we're going to spend $10,000 or $5,000 to get my teenage son's dog trained. So I remember thinking like, okay, well, I'll just train it myself. And I went to Shields, the like local sporting goods store, and I bought every gun dog video book, bunch of Learburg videos, and just kind of dove into how to train my own dog. And I quickly like realized that I really enjoyed it. I was very, very consistent every day. I'd spend at least an hour training. I'd go in, watch videos, I'd go out and try to do the same thing. And, a year into it, we'd start taking her out hunting, and I would go out with these friends that had professionally trained dogs. And I like very quickly realized like my dog was better than everybody else's dog. And I was like, oh man, this is pretty cool. And I think I credit a lot of that to, because I really realized like how important that relationship aspect of dog training was. Like, they would be screaming at their dogs, they're running all over the place. We're sitting in the dog blind, and my dog's just like chilling right next to me, just waiting. And like I said, I think that had a lot to do with the bond that I built doing the training myself. And it just kind of, I was instantly just like obsessed. After high school, I went to college for business. I always knew I wanted to own my own business. So I know like I have college papers that I wrote on, they'd say like, oh, what business do you want to start? And all my papers were on opening my own dog kennel, dog training, all this stuff. And like my passion stayed. Life happened. I had to get like a real job. I
had to grow up.
I had to
get a real
job. Yep. So I like bounced around. I've done a lot of different things in my life.
Yeah.
And it used to kind of bother me. I used to be like self-conscious. Like I would get a new job, or I'd start a new business, and I'd be like, oh, everyone's like looking at me like, oh, what's Tommy doing this week? Ooh, what kind of business does Tommy have now? And now I look at it a lot different. I think I wouldn't change a thing. I have so many life experience, so many ups and downs, been through so much in my life, and I wouldn't change it for anything. I wouldn't change it. And I've learned so much. And I own a painting business, a videography business, and they all started out great. And then just, due to life and stuff like that, I just, it just didn't work out. I had times where I did really well, made a lot of money, and then other times where, and that's business, right? Like I just didn't have the, like, I don't know, I wasn't able to like stick with it. There came a time like, okay, bills are due. I gotta figure something out. So I just, I'd get a job, and but that whole time I was always still passionate about training dogs. I trained friends' dogs. I trained family dogs, and eventually doing masonry, construction work. I had like this epiphany. Like I was looking at the older guys; they're all beat up, banged up. I'm like, 25 years old going home with like a sore back and waking up sore. And I'm like, I can't do this forever. So I remember very vividly like having this kind of moment where I was like, I'm not happy. Like I liked my job, which is weird. Like I liked it. I liked the people I worked with, but there was something more. I needed something else. I needed to do something that I was passionate about and that like fulfilled me. I'm not the kind of guy that's just going to be okay working 9 to 5, getting a paycheck. That's just not
Yeah.
who I am. Like it's not going to work. So I remember having that thought and being like, okay, I tried the video thing and that was too stressful, like doing weddings and stuff. Like, whew, like I don't even want to pick up a camera again.
Oh,
Like,
dude, yeah. If you miss that perfect moment at the
exactly,
wedding, yeah, it's like, yeah,
exactly. And I remember I forgot to turn a mic on once.
yeah,
Like, and I was like, I had backup audio, but it was still so stressful. And I was just
yeah,
like, oh, this just isn't it. So I remember
yeah, totally.
tried, the construction thing. What am I like passionate about? And I immediately thought like dogs. Like dogs has been one thing that's been a consistent throughout my whole life. I've always into it. I had my Instagram feed was full of dog training. So I kind of made the decision like, okay, this is it. I'm gonna kind of pursue this now, and started looking for kennels so in the construction world you get laid off for the winter. So
Right.
I was like, okay, I have a little time. Let's try to figure this out. So I started reaching out to all the kennels, anything that had anything to do with dogs, I was emailing them.
Yep.
And at this time I was starting to kind of have some interest in like working dogs, like police dogs, sport dogs. So I started just emailing everybody. Hey, can I just come hang out? I'll clean kennels. I'll pick up dog shit. I'll clean, I'll do anything
Right.
if I can hang out and watch and learn. And didn't get a lot of, response. Not, I don't think I got any response actually. Like, and then I joined a club. There's a Mondial Ring Club
Hmm.
in Minnesota. I actually might be skipping around. I found so back up, I did find a grooming facility that I got a job literally as a bather.
Wow.
So my title was a dog bather. So I just went from working construction, making 25, $30 an hour.
Yeah.
I'm giving dogs baths for $11 an hour.
Crazy.
And yeah, it sucked, dude.
Yeah.
It was tough, but I like loved going to work, man. I like loved being around dogs. My like, I think, I think dog training, I think there is a certain aspect of like, some people just kind of have a gift, a little bit more of,
Yeah, for sure.
it's just comes maybe a little bit easier. I think a lot of that just comes with like people's different energy. Like people that are a little more nervous and anxious probably aren't going to do as well. I think like maybe like athletes do better, like a little more coordination, that timing. So I was like, right off the bat, there was dogs that nobody could handle. And then I quickly became the guy that could clip its nails, or I could get him in the bath and nobody else could. And they had a sister company that was training. So right off the bat, they knew my intentions. Like, hey, I'll be a bather, but my goal is to be a trainer. So I worked my way up. Eventually became a trainer. I worked under a lady for maybe a year, and then she like quit one day, and it was just me. And I was like having to go to these clients' houses. I remember YouTubing like how to, the dog to stop barking at the door on
Yeah.
my way to appointments, like YouTube and stuff. Like I was just kind of thrown into it and had to
Yeah.
figure it out. And I learned a lot during those times, just having to figure it out, tossing me in there. And I think I've always been really good with people. Like I can kind of talk to people and kind of, create that rapport with them and get them to trust me. And a lot of it was just winging it, just figuring it out. And then COVID happened, and that company closed down, and I had to go back to my masonry job. But now I had like a goal. Now it was like, okay, I had a little bit of, I had a taste for a couple years. So now it was like, okay, I'll do the masonry thing, but I had the goal that in wintertime, when I get laid off, I'm going to start my own business. So this and that, okay. So now to get back where I was now at this time, I joined a club, a sport club. There's Mondio Ring in Minnesota. I first wanted to do PSA. There was one PSA club in Minnesota, and they didn't have a lot of experience there. So I made the decision like, hey, I want to do this sport, but I was aware of I wasn't going to get a lot of experience. Like I want a solid foundation from people that have been doing it for a long time. And in Minnesota, Mondio Ring has that. They have people that have been doing it for a long time, compete at the highest level.
Right.
So I made that decision. It was just a matter of resources, and I got really lucky and, ended up in a club because I said I was interested in decoying. So then, of course, if you're interested in decoying, they're like, oh, yeah, no, actually, we do have room for you. Like, come on in. Especially around here. Like, I know a lot of places.
Yeah, they're like, we just need bodies.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I said that I was in, and then I was hooked with that. Like, first time in the suit, I was like obsessed. I was hooked. I was like, okay, this is it. And then, fast forward, first winter, tried it, didn't quite make it. Second winter, I was maybe a little closer, but just didn't quite make it. That third winter, or maybe it was the second winter. One of the winters, I was there were some things that happened that like pushed me to take that leap to like, okay, I don't know if it's a sign. I don't know but like I'm doing it now. So I did it, got the LLC, put out the Facebook, made the website, did all this stuff. And I burned the ships. Like I didn't have a plan B. I was like, this is it. This is what I'm doing. I remember there was one time too, I started off, it was great. Then it slowed down, and then, how starting a business goes. And then
For sure.
it was a slow month. And I asked my wife, like, should I get a part-time job? Like, it's kind of tough right now. And she looked at me and said, like, no, like, we're like, you said you were going to do this. Like, we're doing it.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I was like, all right, let's do it then. Like, okay,
Yeah.
and then I was all in. Like I said, I burned the boats. I was going to make this work no matter what.
Right.
And it was back and forth, up and down. And I remember I joined your Facebook group, and you reached out to me like early on, and I was like, nah, I think I might have responded to you, and then I didn't.
Right. Just ghosted me.
I did go, yeah, for sure.
You're not the first. It won't be the last.
Oh yeah, definitely. But it was cool. Like,
yeah,
it was always in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
And then it was these videos, which is so cool that like I'm doing
pretty amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. It's insane because I remember watching these videos, and I can't remember the guy's name. I think it was Brock.
Yeah. Yep. Brock out in Utah. Yep.
Yep. So I remember watching these, and I would see the title like, oh, 20,000 in a month, or 10, 15,000 in a month. And I remember always thinking like, yeah, whatever. Like it's probably like a big facility or like a big team of people, like whatever.
Sure.
Or it's just a scam, right? Like I was like, there's no.
It's got to be a scam. That's what like people think, myself included. Like I've thought that about stuff, and then I've later on joined and be like, oh no, there's actually something to this,
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So I actually clicked on one, and I was like, all right, see what this is all about. And what got me was I think he did 20 grand just doing private lessons. So that even blew my mind even more, because I was like, to make that kind of money, you have to do like a lot of board and trains, right? Like, and I just didn't have the space. It just didn't seem reasonable to me. So when I heard that, I was like, whoa, okay. And that's when I reached back out to you and was like, and started talking about like, hey, what's this look like? We did taxes, and we did really well with taxes. So it was like, okay, what are we going to do here? Like it was getting slow again, maybe do a couple grand a month, barely getting by. I'm so fortunate that my wife has a good job and was able to we were able to kind of keep going during those times.
For sure. Yeah.
She supported me the whole time, like cheered me on, and kind of every time I would get discouraged, she'd be like, no, let's keep going. It's, like this is expected. It's a new business. It's going to be hard at the beginning. So like I said, we had a little extra money from the taxes, and said, okay, I reached out. We did the consultation. I got some numbers. I said, let me run it past Chelsea. And, I talked to her, and it was a hard sell for her. Like, she was like,
I remember the whole thing.
like,
Yeah.
there's no, like, that's so much, like, that's a lot of money just to kind of
Yeah.
to take a gamble on. And I was like, well, what's it going to hurt to try? Like, the worst that's going to happen is we lose a little bit of money, but we can always pull out and just kind of do something else. Like, it's not going to, it's not going to be the end of, it's not going to ruin us completely. Let's just try. Like, and, so I finally got her on board. She came on a consult with you, which was great. Like, you were very, like, yeah, let's bring her in. Like, I'll talk, like, you were like, I'll talk to her and kind of break things down for her. And that helped a lot.
Yeah.
I think she's skeptical too. She was like, well, you just found a guy on Facebook who's
some guy on the internet is like making you all these promises. Yeah. I know. I mean, that's why I always joke and say that to people. Like, that's not lost on me that it's like, I am just a guy on the internet who's like, like saying like, hey, I can help you. But the thing that I love about this is like your whole story. I want to go back to a couple of things there is that, but first and foremost is that like, you're just like a normal person, just like I am. Right. And it's not like you have like any sort of like superpower or anything like that. It's like, you were just ready to go in head first and really take the leap of faith, and whatever was going to come your way, you were just going to find a way to handle it. And like, it's paid off, you know what I mean? So we're going to get into the numbers in a little bit here, but like, just for reference, like when we first started working together, like Tommy was doing anywhere between like $1,000 to a couple $1,000s a month, depending on the month. It was very inconsistent. And the first month working with us was like $8,800. Right. And so now we're heading towards these months where you're doing like 10,000, 15,000. So we're on a trajectory here to get you to 20K. And so, yeah, dude, I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about that, just because like in the beginning, like what was it for you? Did you think like, that's just not possible for me? Or could you just not see a pathway to getting there? Or what did you think about that?
I don't know, man. Cause it's hard. Cause I always knew, like, anybody that knows me, like, I'm a big dreamer. Like, always the one talking about like, ooh, someday we're going to have that, or someday we'll do this. And it's like, I always knew like that there's someday. Like, I was never like if, or, when. Like, I know I talked a little bit about, being a little hesitant, but like, it wasn't like, oh, I got to go get a job again. It was just, frustration in the moment. Like, just like, what am I going to do? But in the back of my mind, I always knew that I was going to be successful. And these kind of numbers to me was like I said, I knew it was possible, but like for me, that was like down the road, like 5-10 years to 10 years from now, I'll be able to do that. So I think, and that first month too, I had no expectations. I kind of we kind of talked about, let's give it 3 months, I think is kind of what I was thinking. And we'll see what happens in 3 months. And it was honestly like, if not day one, week one, my phone was like blowing up. Like, I was like, it was the craziest, like, it was crazy. Like, Chelsea works from home. So she's like upstairs, office is down here. And I'm like, oh, we got another one. My place. Oh, I got scheduled another one. And I like very quick. Had like 5 or 6 consultations throughout the week. And like it just happened a lot quicker than I expected.
Well, that's just real quick. Like, I think the funny thing about that is like, there are a lot of digital marketing companies out there where they're like, hey, it's going to take us 30 to 45 days to set up your ads account. It's going to take, this is really like a, 6-month investment, and the goal is, I'm like, F that. I'm trying to make money now. You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole thing to me is like, so many times people come to us and they're like giving us their last money they have. And I'm like, I don't have time to waste here. I don't have 30 days to build an account. I'm trying to get this done in a couple of days, get your phone ringing, get consultation set and make money. We need cash now. So it seems like you were able to like capitalize on that like right away, man.
Oh yeah. Like I said, if it wasn't the first day, I bet you it was like days 2-3 is when like it was crazy, like 4 or 5 calls a day. Like,
Yeah, and dude, I mean, you've like, I mean, so like we changed a couple things in your business. I know everybody who's listening to these
Yeah,
calls, everyone knows that like I'm super big on doing in-person consultations. I know that sometimes people want to do them over the phone, but do
yeah.
me a favor, Tommy, talk a little bit about that because I know that was something I really kind of like encourage you to do is like get out there, meet face to face with people, make them offers, and it's really paid dividends for you, it seems like.
Yeah, dude, I got a couple good ones for you that a lot of people are going to get a lot of value from. And I've
Okay,
been
cool.
for a few days because I had a really cool experience happen. But
Yeah.
just to kind of go back to the beginning, I think before I started working with you, I did free consultations.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped doing them because I found myself, and not to be like judgmental or anything, like I'm a very empathetic person. I don't think anything less of them, but I found myself in places that it was very clear that these people weren't going to be able to afford
Right.
dog. And it was like a couple kind of weird experiences that kind of made me think like, damn, I don't want to do this anymore. So I started kind of getting away from that with the thought of I'll get more serious people. Like if people are willing to pay money for that first appointment, that means they're
Yeah,
willing to like invest. And that was kind of my thought process behind
for
that.
sure. And a lot of people think that way, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the difference is it's just like, I did a lot of stuff on like Facebook community pages, word
Mm-hmm.
of mouth. That's kind of how I got all my business. And I think when you're doing it that way, I think that can be kind of
Right.
a common issue that you're going to run into.
For
But
sure.
so yeah, that was one of the first things. And I came into it like, hey, I'm willing to do anything. Like when
Right.
you in the in-person consultations, I think I was like, yeah, I tried that. It didn't work out for me, but I'll do it. I'll try it again. Like
For sure.
you,
Yeah.
and I'll try it. I'll at least give it a try. And I think that was important too, to just kind of be willing to try something new, because obviously what I was doing wasn't necessarily working.
Right. Which is, I just want to touch on that real quick. Like my favorite thing, and I see this even for myself, it's like you need to really like challenge your way of thinking sometimes because my favorite thing is like talking to somebody and they're not succeeding even they're not even succeeding in their own eyes. They know that like something is going wrong here, but they're unwilling to change those things.
Yeah.
It's like you
Yeah.
really need to evaluate that and go like, I'm not winning, I'm not to the place I want to be, but I'm not open to trying new things, and I'm just going to keep doing the things that are resulting me not winning. So that's
Yeah.
just like a really important thing to audit. So I'm glad you were able to kind of do that and like step outside of yourself and be like, okay, let's just try this.
Yeah, dude, for sure.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, we changed that. So we did the in-person consultation. I did another meeting, and we restructured my pricing,
Yep.
um, my website, the packages. Because at the beginning, again, I think I was onto something because I kind of did all these things at the beginning. So I did
Yep.
offers at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and then I think I did like 6 session pack or whatever. I did packages, and then
Yep.
I went back to doing just like individual sessions. And I think there was another trainer that, a mentor of mine who he was in the metro area and he was fairly successful. And I took a lot of what he did. And so I saw him just offering like individual sessions. And so I kind of did the same thing.
For sure.
So that was another big thing we changed, was we went back to doing packages. So
Mm-hmm.
6 sessions and 8 sessions. And yeah, so and then the price change. So the price change,
Price increase. Yeah.
yeah, that was crazy. I remember being so like hesitant,
Yeah.
and like when I first, because I almost doubled my prices. Like I
Yeah.
was at, I think, 80 a lesson, and now I'm at 150.
Yeah. And they're going to go up again, by the way. Like those
Yeah.
are going up again because you're closing
Yeah.
everybody. So that's a clear indicator that like, prices need to go up.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy because like I'm so nervous to be like, man, that's a lot of money. I don't think I've gotten a single person that's like commented on it. Like, and a lot of that is because of the in-person consultation. So now
Yeah.
I want to get to this I'm going to tell you a story.
Please do. Yeah. I've been waiting for this.
Oh, and this is so great too. So I had a call. We scheduled a consultation.
Mm-hmm.
She called me back like 2 or 3 days before the consultation, and comes into the phone call hot. Like, she's like, I pick up, I'm like, hello. And she's like, hello. And then she's like, yeah, so our consultation, how much is this going to cost me? Because if this is going to cost me an arm and a leg, I'll just cancel it right now. And I was like, whoa, like, okay, how are you doing? I was like,
I
no, no.
know.
I was like, no, this is the consultation's free. But at the same time, I'm starting to think like, okay, if she's already kind of coming into it like this, so I'm kind of having the attitude like, you know, if she cancels right now, like, I don't really care. Cause like,
Totally. Yeah.
because if
Yep.
she's already complaining about the pricing, once I give her my prices, she's going to have the same reaction. So she goes, okay, because I just got off the phone with insert local trainer, and their prices started at $1,000, and they were she said they were completely out of line. And I was like, well, what do you mean they were out of line? And she said their starting packages were $1,000. And I go, okay, well, my prices are going to start around $1,000. I mean, mine start at 600, but I was just like,
Yeah, for sure.
I just kind of wanted her to cancel at this point. And I
Mhm.
was like, my prices are about the same. So, you know, if that's the case, if you think that's out of line, because what pissed me off was that, like, who are you to decide that someone else's prices are out of line? Like,
It's not even worth trying to make sense of. It makes no sense, that statement, you know?
exactly. So I was
Yeah.
kind of, but we kept the consultation, and I was kind of like, man, I don't even really want to go to it at this
Mhm.
point. And so I go to it, and I was like, let's just see what happens. I pull up. It's a very nice neighborhood. They have a very nice house. They got
Mhm.
2 boats in the driveway.
Wow.
Obviously, you know, they're doing okay. And I walk in, we shake hands. She's super nice. She brings me in the backyard. She's got like 4 dogs. Um, just having typical problems. They're just kind of crazy at the entryway. You know, she has one specific one he's a young lab, and he's just kind of out of control. So we talk, and I'm there for a long time. I'm there for over an hour, which is something that I'm working on. Is
Mhm.
like, I'll stay at consultations so long, but at the
Yeah.
same, like, I close most of them. So
And that's
I,
why. It's because like you're like actually building a relationship with them.
yeah. So fast forward, I spend over an hour with this. It's her and her husband, and we get to the point where she's on board. Like, she's talking about scheduling appointments, and then I had to even ask her. I was like, "Have we gone over the prices yet?" And she's like, "Oh, no, no. What?" So I tell her the prices, and then doesn't bat an eye,
Yeah.
and says, so she signs up for the 8 packages, and I say, okay, I just need a deposit for, I need half of that for a deposit, and then the rest will be due at the end. She writes me a check for $1,100 and hands it to me, paid
Yeah.
in paid in full,
Painful. Yeah.
and didn't have a single issue with the price. So the point of this is, what happened, when I kind of think back, is she had a phone call with a company that didn't do private or in-person consultations. They just gave their prices out over the phone. So she called this dog training company and said, hey, what's your prices? And they just said, hey, my prices start at 11,000 or
Yeah.
$1,000. And then she just gets that sticker shock and says,
Yep.
oh my gosh, you're fine. That's
Yep.
ridiculous. $1,000? Are you kidding me? And now she's pissed. So then I'm assuming she calls me right after. And that's why
Mhm.
she's like, you know, what are your prices? Because this company told me they're $1,000 and blah, blah, blah. And I still didn't, I never told her my exact prices. I just said, well, my prices are going to be around that $1,000 as well.
Right.
So, but that consultation's free. So she was pissed, but she's like, whatever, I'll still do the consultation. And if that's free, then whatever. So then
Right.
we do the consultation. She gets to know me. She spends an hour with me, and I obviously, at the end of it, she trusted me. She knew a little bit about me and my story. She
Yeah.
asked me, got into training, and because of, I got into training through bird dogs and stuff, and they had labs. There's a little bit of rapport we're building, and we kind of
For
had
sure,
some.
dude. Yeah.
She made a comment about dock diving. I said, oh, well, I have a good friend that does dock diving. I can put you guys in touch. Maybe and she said, oh, that would be amazing. Like, I would love to have like a mentor to kind of show me how to do that. And by the end of it, like I said, she wrote me a check for $1,000 without batting an eye. And
Yeah.
that's because the in-person consult.
Oh, dude, I love that story, man. That like summarizes exactly what I feel like I try to like get across to everybody when I'm trying to tell people about like the benefit of doing in-person consults. Like
Yep.
there's the age-old saying in sales that will forever be true, that people buy from people that they know, like, and trust. It's as simple as that, you know.
Yep.
And there's no way they can know you, like you, or trust you if you're just having a 5-minute conversation where you're just giving them your prices. You know, like there's a big difference between selling somebody and telling them.
Yep.
Selling them is going out there, meeting with them, looking them in the eyes, shaking their hands, hearing all about their problems, you know, coming up with a solution for them that they feel like addresses their exact needs. Telling them is like, hey, here's our programs, here's our prices, which one do you want to do? And very rarely are people going to buy that way. People need to be nurtured. And this is the benefit of doing it this way. You know,
100%.
I just want to throw this out there because I was just having a conversation with somebody this morning about this. I think a lot of times people fall into the trap of like, I need to get paid for my time, right? And there's different ways to look at that. Yep. And so what I was going to say real quick is that people like, I need to charge $150 or even $50 because I need to get paid for my time, right? But if you run the numbers on it, and let's just use simple numbers, say you're trying to make, you know, $10,000, right? And say you do 10 consultations and not everybody buys on every single consultation. And say, you know, each consultation is an hour, right? Excluding drive time and all that. But if you make $10,000 by doing 10 consultations, but you only close 5 people, and each one of those people is paying you $2K each, you're still making the 10K. And what you've effectively done is over those consultations, like you've made $1,000 an hour over those 10 hours that you've done. Not everybody's going to buy on every single consultation. But the point is like you need to meet with enough people each month to put yourself in the situation to succeed. And so like that's exactly what you're doing, man. It's like, you know, I think that really for you, the next kind of frontier is going to be also raising your prices, like I said before, because you're already getting pretty much everybody saying yes to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So it's pretty cool, man. It's really cool to see that transition. And so like, you know, sometimes it's like I was saying before, you can recycle bad habits that don't work and kind of wonder to yourself, like, why this isn't working. But, you know, again, for you, like you were able to go outside of yourself and go like, let's try something different here. And it's really paid off.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. So I always like to kind of do like a little bit about this conversation as well. I'd love to kind of hear you walk us through kind of how you conduct your consultations, what you're trying to do when you get in there. Because I feel like for a lot of trainers, this is one of those pieces that can be missing for people, is really how to do this properly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I'll admit too, like I'm still so early on that I'm still figuring this out. I think there's a lot of things like, so a big one for me is like, I could absolutely be selling a lot of these people on higher packages, but I don't. And I think that's something that, you know, if I want to start getting that 15 and 20, I could, you know, easily get those numbers by upselling people to a 6 to 8 session package. So that's like one thing that I definitely want to start focusing on. But kind of how it works and like the whole process too. Like I just recently, I'm trying to get everything more streamlined, organized, because I'm not the most organized person. So like for me, I know to get to those, you know, 10, 15, 20,000 months, it's going to be a matter of like how organized I can be, like how many tiny little changes can I make to save time and kind of make things more kind of easier,
efficient.
Yes.
Yep.
So for right now, like I get a call. I typically try to, I'm bad at this part too, but I typically try to, you know, try to keep them telling the whole story to a minimum, just because I'm not going to remember that. I talk to a lot of people. So first of all, I'm not going to remember it. And that's kind of what we want the consultation for, is so we can sit down and go through everything there. So I try to keep the phone calls short, but not like too short where, you know, it's just like, hey, let's get scheduled, blah, blah, blah. Like I'll be friendly and I'll let them tell me a little bit, because people want like instantly, they just want to get into it. You know, and just start throwing it all out, because they've probably been dealing with a lot of stress and
Yeah.
anxiety. I've probably been like going back and forth. Do I hire a trainer? Do I not? And chances are something happened to
Right.
make that trigger. So when they get somebody on the phone, they just want somebody to listen and kind of
Yeah.
validate their issues. So
Yep.
that I will do that still, but then we just try to get something, a consultation scheduled. Um, once I have that scheduled, um, my whole approach is just like, I joked with my wife the other day. I said, because there's all these books on sales and all these things going on. And I was like, I'm gonna write a book on sales, and it's gonna be one page, and it's gonna be nice,
Yeah.
just be nice. Like,
Yeah.
be nice, be respectful, be polite, listen. That's one thing that, like, so I get in, we sit down, and I just let them tell me, just talk, just let it all out.
Hmm.
Like, if they ask me questions, I'll try to keep a short response. I try to not do a lot of talking because I can definitely get in kind of a rant and just kind of go off because I am so passionate about this.
Yeah,
I love
totally.
dogs, so it's like I can get in that. So I try to keep myself in that listening mode, because another thing too is um I can get to be where you don't want to get to where you're sharing too much stuff. Like, you don't want to be saying, well, this is how I would do this, or hey, for that problem I would do this. Like, you want to kind of, so what helps me a lot is, and especially now that I've had my hands on a lot more dogs, like right now I have 23 clients, like, actively. So I
Wow, dude.
training 23 dogs. A lot of those are 2 or 3 dogs. Looking at my little whiteboard over there, but like, so the more experience, and there's so much value in just getting out there. So now it's like, oh yeah, I had a dog that had this very similar issue. We were able to implement
Yes.
a couple of these little things and see a lot of improvement. So
Yep.
like, be able to like validate them and say, hey, yeah, this is normal. Like, it's a very common issue, and there's things we can do to fix it. Another thing that I think is good for the consultations is, like, I get a lot of people ask me like, oh, what are your methods, or what kind of trainer are you? And I always try to I'll say, like, I'm a dog trainer. If people are telling you like, oh, I'm a positive only trainer, or I'm a balance trainer, or I this or that, I'm a behaviorist, I'm a behavior modification specialist. Like, I think like, if that's your thing, like, cool, but you're just dog training. You're just
Yeah.
training dogs. That's it. Like, if you're good at training dogs, you can handle any of those different behavior, training, any of that stuff.
Hmm.
And do you still got me there?
I got
Okay.
you. Yeah. Can you see me? Okay. Yeah.
Yep. So I just say I'm a dog trainer. Like, whatever, my like methods, or my kind of how I train, is gonna depend on the dog. So, and I think a lot of people like to hear that. I think they like to hear, like, I'm not dogmatic about anything. Like,
Yep.
I'm not gonna walk into a house and say, well, we're gonna use a prong collar, we're gonna use an e-collar, and if you don't want to use it, find somebody else. Because I mean, I think there are successful trainers that do that, and that's, they just have enough business or whatever. But I also am very open with, hey, if that dog could use one of these tools, I'll say, hey, can we do it without it? Maybe. Like, yeah, we could probably do it without it, but it's going to take a lot more time, and it's going to take a lot more work from you. It's going to
Right.
take a consistency, and at the end of the day, like, you might get some improvement, but I'm telling you right now, like, we could use these tools. That's what they are. They're tools to enhance our training. It's not like we're just going to slap them on and it's going to be fixed,
Right.
but can definitely help the process.
For
So
sure. Yeah.
I think having that attitude helps a lot too. People are a lot more receptive to it, and they're in a lot more like, okay, like, I can kind of get on board with that.
Yeah. No, dude, that's really well said. I mean, that's what I've heard from a bunch of trainers that I consider to be like elite trainers. That they're like, you kind of start off and you may kind of go down that road where some people start off and they're purely positive. Other people are like, I'm a balance trainer, and every dog that comes their way, they're going to use a prong collar on them or whatever
Yeah.
it may be. But, what I've heard quite a few people say now is that, like, the mark of a good trainer in a lot of cases is not just having a cookie cutter approach of like, this is what I do every time, but more so
Yeah.
diagnosing the situation and then just kind of going with whatever is going to be best for that dog and for that family.
Yep.
You know?
100%. And
Yeah.
I rarely get people that, like, if I do think a prong collar is going to be good, I rarely get people that, like, even the people that are hesitant, I can usually kind of educate them a little bit and get them on
Right.
board. But
Yeah,
if not,
since we're having this conversation, because I know that this can be such a hot topic, depending on like what side of the fence you're on. So
yeah,
I'll tread lightly, but the
yeah,
truth is, I think if you are training that way, you do use tools. Sometimes you will get people that are reverse to using them. They're just like, I just don't want to use them, or they think that they're reverse to them. But the truth is like they just lack the education on them. Right. And so
exactly.
like that's a big part of it, is like really educating them on what the intended purpose of these are and how they can actually be beneficial in certain cases and stuff like that. Because if you don't lead with the education, they're just going to go like, that thing looks like a medieval torture device, I'm not using that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so just
Yep.
to go back to this for a second, because I just want to touch on this. You said something that is like very, very impactful, man, which is like, writing a book on sales and be nice. It's
Yeah,
so
dude.
true. Like I can't stress to everybody who's listening to this, like how important that is. Like we all know. And if you don't know, I'll make you aware right now. Like if you're not vigilant of this stuff in your business, you have to be very careful of how you talk to your clients and people, even after years of doing this, because you can see how you can get jaded. Like if you meet with enough people who are kind of difficult clients, or, somebody who doesn't buy, and you start to think you notice patterns and stuff like that, you can kind of like write certain people off. And what I would say is that, like, if you really want to know how to succeed in this business, training dogs, it's get really good at connecting with people. I think a lot of times people think that they want to get into dog training because like, I don't want to work with people. But the truth is, this is such a human heavy business. And
Yep.
if you can really get good at connecting with people and building relationships with the humans, like you already know you can do the dog training. That's the piece that's missing for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
100%. Yep. It's such a, I mean, it's everything. It's like dealing with people that's the job. Like and it can depend. Like if you do more board and trains than people, like, yeah, you're going to not deal with as much, but you still have to hand that dog off, and you still have to articulate the things that you did with that dog. And if
Yeah.
you're not, you can train that dog really well. You can be a really good dog trainer. But if you can't articulate and explain things in a way that are digestible and in a way that people will understand, that's not going to
Yeah.
last. Give that
Yeah.
dog 2 weeks and the dog's going to go back to doing what it's been doing. And I think,
Yeah.
maybe people will say like, oh, I'm still so new. It's only been a few months. Right. But I think the one thing that I am good at is doing that exact thing, is like explaining things in a way that people can understand. Like
Yeah.
I see a lot of dog trainers that they train client dogs like they train their dogs. And especially for, I come from, like, I have a personal dog that I compete in sports with. And so a lot of my training I've learned from the sport world and training sport dogs and decoying and all that stuff. And I've learned that it doesn't work. It's like that doesn't work. Like you expect an average person to like use clickers. And I mean, there are certain clients that 100%, like, I'm like, hey, these people, like, they've done their homework. They're like already kind of understand this stuff. So like, yeah, I'll maybe do a little bit more with them. Like I'll kind of get in a little more depth with, like, the marker system or stuff like that. But there are other clients where, like, I won't even really say much about like markers or stuff like that. Like, cause it's just gonna make it more confusing.
Right.
And it's gonna to where they're not gonna if they're confused and they're not like following through the way that you're trying to like explain it, you're not going to get results. Like it's just going to
Mhm.
be confusion.
Yeah,
Go the next week and there's not going to be much improvement because they don't really understand what they're supposed to be doing. So
right.
like I just really try to like, and I've like created kind of a system that seems to work pretty well. That's like somewhere in the middle. Like with my dog, I mean, he's got all sorts of markers and this means that, and this marker means that, and like all this crazy stuff. And like, so I'll go from that and then, just kind of like dumb it down to where,
Yeah.
try to make it more black and white. Like this means this means that. Like
Mhm.
that's all. No, we'll just and then just try to keep it very simple. And I think
Yeah.
that's what I'm good at. That I think I'm good at talking to people. I there's people that have been doing this for 10, 20 years. I know I have a lot to learn. I'm not saying I know it all, but I do think that is my strength,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. No, I mean, I was saying this to somebody the other day, like you almost need to, in a certain way, like if you are a really skilled trainer, think about if you were talking to a first grader, like how would you word it to them? And like, how would you teach them how to do it? Because it's the 80-20 principle,
yeah,
like 20% of what you cover is going to deliver like 80% of the results for them and like 80% of their happiness, So if you can get somebody who just has a misbehaved dog and you're like, hey, I can get that dog to stop pulling on the leash by doing this and this and teaching them this and this, and by teaching the dog this command or whatever it may be, now all of a sudden you've improved their life so substantially. The rest of it is just kind of gravy on top. But yeah, I mean, like using like clickers and stuff like that, I think that's really well said, Tommy. It's like, you are into that stuff, like you
mm,
enjoy learning about that, you enjoy implementing that, but like most times people just don't even care and they're like, dude, I have this problem, how do we
yeah,
get this to stop? And you're like, okay, tell the dog no.
exactly. And
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah, you said it probably a lot better than I did. That's exactly what I was trying to say. Like
Yeah.
they don't care. Like they don't want to
Yeah.
hear. They don't want to have to do all that. They want to do the absolute bare minimum to get like maximum result.
Yeah, dude, that's human nature,
Yeah, sometimes
Yeah.
very hard to navigate, but that's it. So like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and I heard this. I was reading this book the other day, and it was the coolest thing. And like, I kind of used a lot of that into how I do things with like my business. But the principle was, if we have all these big goals and like a lot of and we think we have to make all these huge changes and these just kind of extreme um these extreme changes that we have to make. And a lot of the times what's going to be a lot more impactful is having like making tiny little changes
Mhm.
throughout the day that's going to get you to that result faster. So like a lot, and that's kind of how I the approach that I have with people is like a lot of people will ask me like, well, do I how much time commitment is this going to be? And I'll say, well, it's like the way that I like to train with clients is like it's stuff that you're already doing throughout the day. So if we
Mhm.
can, make a 1% change on how you're going about your day through all these certain little things, like how do you feed your dog? How do you
Mhm.
let your dog out the door? How do you let your dog out the kennel? How do you play with your dog? All these things, like it's not really, I'm not gonna give you a bunch of things you're gonna have to set a bunch of time aside and okay, you got to take a half hour in the morning and a half hour in the evening. Like, no, I want you to take an extra, you already have to feed your dog. So let's take an extra 2 minutes
Mhm.
and add a criteria to make those dogs earn that food. Let's
Yeah.
take every time they go outside to go to the bathroom, let's add a criteria, take an extra 30 seconds, make them wait, make them lay down, do something to where now, by the end of the day, you've, done 10 reps or however how often you let your dog out, 5-10 reps
Yeah.
of some impulse control. So it's like, it's making tiny little changes with things that you're already doing. Like
Yeah.
it's how you live with your dog. It's not necessarily going in the backyard with a treat pouch and a clicker and a bunch of treats and a toy and teaching your dog all these behaviors and sit down, stay, this, that. Like, no, it's just like it's changing how you live with your dog through structure, discipline, expectations.
Yeah.
And like I said, making those tiny little changes instead of like making this, okay, I know I got this huge goal. Like sometimes that's hard to wrap your brain around.
Absolutely, man. I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is something that I hear from a lot of trainers, and I can understand the frustration, which is like people say, I want clients who are going to do the work, right? And like they kind of get a little bit resentful in a way of like they've worked with people, they didn't put in the work, they didn't, they didn't get the results they wanted. So this is twofold. First and foremost, what it's important to separate out, not to go on a tangent here, but I'm going to anyway.
Not
Not
good.
that, not that, I think one of the most important things is like to really separate out like what are your goals that you would like to see the dog accomplish, and then what are their goals, right? Because those two things are typically very different. And all these amazing things that dogs are capable of, and you may be looking at the breed or the type of dog or just the individual dog they have, and you're like, man, this dog is amazing. This dog can do a lot of different things, but they just don't care about that. So what's really important is setting the correct expectations for yourself and aligning them with like what your client's expectations actually are. So you don't go like, I'm failing. Because that's what you can start thinking to yourself is like, this dog didn't get to where I wanted them to be, and so I failed. It's like, no, they're actually, the owners are actually very happy. And that's the more important thing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then second to that, I think like what you're talking about of like incorporating training into your everyday lifestyle is so much more realistic for these people than being like, you need to block out an hour a day. Like no one's doing that. Just nobody is doing that. They may do it for one day and then they totally fall off. Yep. So it's like, tell them like 5 minutes. Yep. And then if they do 1 minute, it's still better than nothing. You know what I mean? Like that's what I've realized talking to enough trainers is that if you give people homework and they, in total over a 7-day period before you do that next lesson, over those 7 days, do 8 minutes of training, it's still so much better than having them just do nothing at all.
Exactly.
Yeah, man. So I'm glad you brought that up because that's super powerful stuff.
Yeah, dude. And kind of how you said, like how so many trainers they'll get upset and be like, oh, they're not doing anything. And like, so my thing would be like, I would try to take as much responsibility as I could and think like, okay, well, am I asking too much? Is that, like what different approach could I make? Because obviously if they're not doing the homework or they're not doing the things that you suggested that they do, then we have to I, as the trainer, have to figure out a way to make it to where it is easier for them to want to do it.
Yes.
Like, okay, maybe they are lazy and they're not doing the stuff. And it's like, but that's out of your control. You have no control. Like, what can you control is like how to make it just easier, how to make it to where it's so hard to mess up that they're going to not, like it's, you got to take you got to take some of that responsibility. Cause that's one of my biggest pet peeves is when I go on the internet, on Instagram, and I see dog trainers talking about regular pet owners like they're idiots, like they like stupid for not knowing the things that as a dog trainer that you've spent like however many years studying and doing every single day. Like it drives me nuts. Like people like they make videos of like, oh, some random lady let their dog come up to your dog and it's just like, oh, what an idiot. And it's like, no.
They don't know.
They don't know. Exactly.
Yeah, I know, man. Yeah, it's so true, dude. Yeah, so I mean, I think that's really well said as well. It's like taking responsibility for yourself, and this is your business. These are your clients. And another way to look at this is like, yes, you're a dog trainer, but really what you are, especially when you're doing private training, in boarding and training as well, is like you're a coach, and you're coaching the human being on how to have a better relationship with their dog. So a really good coach doesn't just throw their hands up in the air and go, they didn't do the work, and I got to get better clients who do the work. If you continuously find yourself saying like, I need clients who do the work, then what you really need to do is audit yourself and go, maybe there's things I need to be doing to get them to do the work or help them to do the work. And a big part of that is accountability, right? Like what kind of accountability structure do you have in place in your business? Like, do you have people checking in with you? Do you have like, I know people that do this. They're like, hey, you need to send me just a picture of your dog training or a 30-second video of you and your dog training. And they don't even watch it. But as long as they saw like the notification come in, like they're actually doing what they're supposed to do. And that's going to result in such a better experience for yourself and for the client.
Yeah, no, I like that idea. That's good. And I think sometimes too, like I'll send videos. So like if
Yeah.
someone's having a hard time, I had a client recently that was just having a really hard time with like something simple. And I was like, okay, well, I have a puppy at my house that I'm doing the same thing with. I'll send you some video of me doing it.
Yeah.
And that I think even just doing that, like sending a video where they can watch it and just kind of have a little reminder, like, okay,
Yep.
yeah, let's try to do it like this again. Like
Totally do.
I definitely think that like those little reminders or kind of weekly checkups. Hey, how's it going? I try to do that as much as I can.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So listen, I don't want to keep you all day here, but I just want to ask you a couple more things. Okay. So first and foremost, like, it really seems like, this business has taken off since April and really May. That was like our first full month. So
Yeah.
do me a favor, walk everybody through just kind of like what your experience has been so far and like what the last couple of months have been like for you revenue wise and kind of like where you think everything is heading.
Okay. So first of all, just, what this has done for me is it's completely changed our lives. Like it's been incredible. It's been, and I, like I said earlier, like I'm always the guy, like I'm a big dreamer. I'm always like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll be able to do this. And I always kind of, to go along with that, I always just kind of thought like, I just need the opportunity. Like I just
Yeah.
need to give me a chance. And like this here, like gave me an opportunity to kind of jumpstart me and kind of, catapult me off in the right direction. And with that being said, like it's a lot of work. Like
Yeah.
I think at the beginning, that adrenaline and that kind of excitement of the success kind of got me through.
Mhm.
And then these last 2 months, it's been like a lot of work, and it's hard to answer. And it's hard, especially like you get your month, like now, like my whole, like July was full, August was full, September I'm scheduling into September, and it can get overwhelming. But I think just recently, so like I went through this time where I was like pretty overwhelmed, and I was like, holy cow, like this is too much. And I think I took a lot of the pressure off myself, and I just kind of, obviously I try to get to every call as I can.
Yeah.
But I don't put as much pressure. Like I used to take it so personal. Like if I didn't get back to somebody right away, like if I'm at a, I used to try to answer phones during appointments.
Yeah.
And like, I don't do that anymore. And I know some people probably do, but like for me, I turn my phone off. The automated responses are great. Like they're amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's what I say with having Alfred, that's probably been a big weight lifted as well.
for sure, because I think
Yeah.
people still see that. Like I get texts all the time that say, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much for getting back to me so soon."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, automated, like it's obviously
they don't know
but,
that,
and people still think like they're like they, to them, they got a response back, so it's okay. Like for me, I just had time to say like it's okay. Like I can get back to them. Like I don't want to lose out on any of those clients, but just having a lot of that pressure kind of taking that pressure off myself. I'm feeling good. Like I was also really hesitant to like schedule far in advance. I would be like, well, I'm completely booked this month. So if I tell somebody like, hey, I'm booking for September, they're going to want to call somebody else. And I haven't had that response from people. People are sometimes you get people that are like, oh my gosh, I need something now. And I can usually talk them into like, maybe, I don't know, I'll try to maybe squeeze them in like for a consultation on the weekend or something, just to get something so we can meet them, and then kind of to break up that. So if I can't see them for a month, if I gotta work on a Saturday for an hour just to kind of make it to where and I can give them a little bit of something to kind of work on until we can get started, a month or two away, people are generally just fine with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the whole thing, man, is that like one largely, excluding like, certain people who are just extremely impatient, or in fairness to them, like do genuinely need help now because it's a dire situation, is once they're in. Like once you do a consultation and they buy and you give them some sort of relief, and they have processed some sort of payment, that's when they're willing to wait. But what they won't wait for is like they called you, you're so busy that you're like, I can't get to this call for 4 days. And then when you do finally call them back, if they haven't bought dog training already, that you're like, I can't do a consultation for a month. Like
Yeah.
one of the things that I always focus on with people, especially when they start getting to this phase that you're in, is like you still need to, as crazy as it may seem, prioritize just as much as getting out and doing lessons with people, getting out and doing consultations, even though you're booked now, because that's the beauty is you're booked now. But if you stop doing the things that allowed you to be booked now, all of a sudden in 2 months, you'll wake up and go like, huh, my schedule looks a little lighter all of a sudden. And then you got to kind of like rush and kind of like scramble to fill back up again. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a couple of really cool things that I think we're going to make some changes in your business here to help it out. And like, I think hiring somebody is on the horizon here for you, raising prices and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think what you're talking about of like giving yourself permission of like, hey, I've really built this thing. And now like I have this safety net and I'm still signing people on. It's a really good feeling to not feel like, hey, I need to be at the mercy of all my clients.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
And that's something like I needed to hear too, like to keep and I think what I might even do is just like from this conversation now is like maybe like try to keep a couple days open.
Yep.
So I can, start to get people in, like try to have like maybe I'll do like Wednesdays, I'll try to keep a couple time slots open to get more consultations or something. Like
absolutely.
I think try to do something like that. Because I think that is good. People will wait after the consultation, but to wait that long for a consultation that might be a little different story.
That's where they fall off. Yeah, for sure.
Like that.
All right, cool. That's awesome.
So in May, my first month, we had a goal to do. My goal was 5,000. I think you guys were, oh, that's easy. Like,
I knew you were going to blow that out of the water. Yeah.
Yeah. I did $8,860 in May. June, I did 9,500. July, I did 10,200. And then August, I'll do like, I'm 90% sure I'll get 15 in August and September.
Pretty incredible, man, to be on that trajectory.
Yeah. So those are also like just like my pet stuff. Like I do a lot of sport training too. Like I work with, the last few months I've gone and worked with some, law enforcement agencies and worked with those dogs. Next month I'm like helping out with a decoy seminar for a couple law enforcement agencies. Like that's a paid gig.
Beautiful,
every time I decoy at club, I make a little bit of money. So it's like, there's probably an extra $500 on all those too, like with training.
It's amazing, man. Yeah. I mean, it's really crazy. It's amazing what this never fails to amaze me. Like what can be accomplished in such a short period of time. Like, you started off telling everybody here about like your experience just in life and like all the different things you've done and starting your business for literally years. You know what I mean? And like you were some good months and not so good months. And then all of a sudden, like really, this was like rocket fuel to your business. Like all of a sudden you pretty much like 10x your revenue month one. You know what I mean? And so now like you're going towards these numbers of like 15, 20K. And the more empowering thing to me that I always think about is like, you also now have a system that, sends you as much business as you need. And if you want more, like you can adjust it to get more. If you don't need as much, like you can scale it down. And, you were saying this before, and this is a line I always use too with people, because I think it's so true, is like, you're just not being given the opportunity. Like you're an amazing person. Like, dude, I love talking to you. And like, I could see why your clients love working with you. Like you're obviously an incredible dog trainer. It's just, you weren't known. Like you just weren't getting your name out there. And so like, once you solve for that problem, 99% of the time, people's businesses just take off.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what's coming for you, man? Like, what do you feel like is like next here? Like, what would you like to see out of the business? And like, that way, when we do our next call, we can do a check-in and kind of reference this video here.
Yeah. So next is going to be, I think we've been kind of going back and forth. I want to build like a building at my house. We have a couple acres, so we do have some space.
Yeah.
We're forth, like, do we convert our garage into kennels? Do we build a shop and build kennels out there? Do I rent a facility? And I've talked to a lot of dog trainers recently, and I think that what I'm kind of leaning towards now is to just try to build something on my property and just kind of keep that overhead down
That's what I
versus,
would do.
versus renting a
Yeah.
facility, having a lot more overhead. I think if I have the space, I have a big open backyard. So I think that's what's next is we're going to try to build build a space that's both, I can house dogs, but I also, what's big for me is, which is why I'd want to do it versus the garage, is I also want to have a space to train, because I
Yeah.
want to start having, I'll hire trainers to continue doing in-home lessons. But for me, my long-term goal is to have a team to do this and to go to houses and work with clients. And what I want to do is I want people to come to me and kind of have more of a specialty, like doing protection work, sport work, law enforcement, police dogs. And I want to do that. I want people to come to me. So is just kind of setting it up to where I can start just taking clients, like coming to my house, have maybe offering a little bit of a lower price to come to me and just do lessons, maybe start doing classes, and then really double down on board and trains. Because at the
Yeah.
beginning, I was doing a lot of board and trains, and I just have crates in my basement. It's a nice setup. Like, I have good TNC crates, couple of kennels, but it's like a lot. Especially my wife works from home. It's a
Or
lot.
Chelsea.
Yeah, dude. It's 24/7. You're up
Yeah,
at 8 a.m. You're not going to bed till 11. Like, it's just nonstop. So if I
for
could just
sure.
have it be a little more separate, like throw
Oh,
them all.
absolutely. Yeah. And the
It'll
cool thing is, man, like you're coming into this phase where now is the time to start doing this stuff. You're booked out, you have the extra cash in your business. So it's like it's the time to start making these moves, before you start getting too like overwhelmed, because you know
Yeah.
what that feels like.
Yep. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, let's end with this, man. So here's the question I always ask everybody. Like, if you put yourself back in your shoes where you were in like April, or like March and April, before we started working together, like if somebody was in that situation now, what is the advice that you would give to that person?
I mean, the advice that I would give would be burn the ships. Don't have a plan B. Like, you got to go all in, and then just
Yeah.
bet on yourself. Like, invest in yourself. Like, that's
Yeah.
what we like. Even if I was super fortunate, like I said, we had a little tax come in, we had a little extra cash gone, so we decided to invest that into
Yeah.
some marketing. But like, honestly, like, my opinion now is like, yeah, I'm sure there's tons of businesses that like organically get to those numbers,
Right.
but if you want like to get to that point, like now, you have to do some sort of, you have to have like a marketing part. You
Strategy. Yeah.
put something in. You have to invest money, whether you hire somebody. Like, I mean, obviously, I would tell people to go and hire you, but like, at the end of the day, the point is like, you have
Yeah.
to invest in yourself, and you have to not have a plan B. Like,
Yeah.
if this is what you want to do, like, you can't think like, okay, if this doesn't work, I'm gonna go back and work construction with my
Yeah.
uncle. Oh,
Yeah.
fuck,
Totally.
burn the ships. This is the only option. If this doesn't work, well, then I'm just gonna try again. Like, it's
Yeah.
so like so don't have a backup plan. Invest in yourself. And yeah, and also, like, I think a big part of for me, like, if any dog trainer came to me for advice, I would say, um, try to get involved in some sort of sport, like, and join a club. Because
Mm.
like I said, I emailed every dog trainer in the state, and no one emailed me back. But I found a club that I could join, and pay a little bit of dues every month. But like, the value that you get from those people, especially if it's a good club, it's people that have been doing it for a long time. Like, I wouldn't be half the trainer I am right now if it wasn't for those people. And
Yeah.
also, a lot of those clubs are going to be filled with other dog trainers. Like,
Yeah.
like my club has, I think there's 3 of them that own their own dog training businesses. So like a lot of them kind of helped me and pushed me in the right direction and like kind of encouraged me to take that leap of faith and kind of so have like a group of people that you meet with weekly. Like even when I was slow, I still had that. Like I would still go and I would learn and I would try to just take in as much as I could. And so yeah, as far as like learning and like and getting better as a dog trainer, I would really, really encourage people to try to get into some sort of dog sport. I think it's like protection sport, and I think that's like the pinnacle of dog sports, but maybe people that do it would argue that. But I think when you're doing sports, you're learning like training theory and you're learning like dog behavior to a very high level. So after doing that, and like if you have that background, going into a random person's house and dealing with their pet dog is going to be like
nothing.
It's you in your sleep. Like
that's really well said, man. Community is a huge thing, and like, another piece of this, like, I just want to get back to what you were saying before for a second. I think a lot of times people like, I'm going to take a risk here and I'm going to like invest in like marketing or something like that. But to me, like what's way more of a risk is not investing, because you're taking a massive chance that all of a sudden magically, like that's literally what it is. Magically, people are going to start finding you and referring you and stuff like that. Instead of being like, let me take the control into my hands and like properly market myself or find somebody who can properly market me and my business to get me to that next level, like, and I just think that's an important distinction.
100%. No, it's such a good point. Just because like, it's really not a risk. Exactly. I like that. Like more of a risk to not,
and to your point before, but you were saying about like if it doesn't work, like just do it again. Like that's the mentality you have to work. And to even take it like a step further, what I would say is like it's not a matter of if it's going to work. It's just make it a matter of like, how can I make this work? Like I know that if you got more leads, like you were going to succeed. And that's been the case. And that's the case with most people.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, listen, let me let you run. Okay. Because we've been talking for like 90 minutes now and I don't want to take your whole day, but sincerely, Tommy, thank you so much for taking the time to like meet with me, tell everyone your story. Is there anything else you want to like plug or just to leave us with or anything?
Nah, man, no, I really appreciate it. No, it's cool. Cause I remember, starting this, a big part of it was watching these videos. And I remember thinking someday I'm going to do one of these videos and it's pretty cool. So I appreciate it. And I really appreciate everything you've done for me. And like I said, it's changed my life. It's changed our lives. And yeah, dude, I can't wait to keep going and see where this goes. So I appreciate
love it, brother. Of course, man. It's my pleasure. All right, buddy. We'll talk soon. Okay.
All right. Sounds good. Take it easy.
See you, Tommy. Bye-bye.